Focal Point, Episode 3, where we talk about marketing with Classic Photographer's Chief Marketing Officer, Keith Phillips, and then we discuss some of this month's prompts. I'm your co-host, David Patton, and of course we have Keith with us today, and your host, creator of Focal Point and the 52-Week Challenge, Chelsea London.
Thank you, David. I'm really excited about today because I think this is a topic that photographers really get bogged down by. So I'm very excited to bring Keith on. He is, like David said, the Chief Marketing Officer of Classic Photographers. If you don't know Classic Photographers, they're one of the largest wedding photography companies in the US. So Keith, thank you for coming and joining us today. Really excited to talk to you about marketing because, like I said, it seems to be the white whale of a lot of photographers.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this. Like, marketing is one of those things I could go on and on about forever, and really excited to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit about your role at Classic and your day-to-day, what kinds of things that you are an expert in and how you can help other photographers?
Sure. In my day-to-day, I do a little bit of everything, not just marketing. So I am heavily involved with answering questions for our photographers that work and for us. And I should back up. We have about 1,000 photographers, more or less, from time to time. And they all work on a contract basis, but many of them shoot anywhere between, 5 to 10 weddings a year, some as high as 60, 70, 80. So we have a wide range of photographers all over the US. So my day-to-day in terms of interacting with photographers is sort of answering the questions on how to work with Classic Photographers, how to navigate our systems, and how to interact with their clients that get booked through us. In terms of marketing, I do a little bit of everything. So we're heavily into email marketing, but we're totally e-commerce on our website. So I think it'd probably be important to back up real quick and give a brief snapshot of how it works, because that will help me explain better on what we do. So at Classic Photographers, clients can book right on our website. All of our photographers have calendars available and a certain radius that they'll shoot in. So it's my job to help bring clients to the website and showcase all the different talents of the different photographers.
So when you say that you work as almost like a liaison between the customer and the photographers, would you say that is something that the photographers find value in because it cuts out them having to do all of that labor?
Yeah, of course. So that's our value proposition to the photographer, is that we do all the marketing, we do the customer service for the most part. The photographer is expected to call and say hello and interact with their client a little bit. But we do all the heavy lifting, and they get to do just what they love, which is show up and shoot a wedding. They don't even need to edit. They just upload to our server, and our editing team takes it from there. So it's a real good experience for our photographers, who don't like to edit, don't like to market, like to run their own business, but B, for people who are just trying to fill their dates. So maybe they book themselves 10 times a year, and they want to fill those Fridays, Sundays, those off Saturdays, and that's what they use us for. So those are like the two main use cases for Classic Photographers. That all being said, to move on to the marketing, I've spent 12 years marketing this in many different ways as the digital landscape has changed. In fact, I was marketing this before digital marketing was even a term or phrase that people used, but we've become a full e-commerce platform. And I've been around thousands of photographers over the last 12 years and heard all their pain points in marketing their individual businesses. And I've helped I was trying to do the math this morning before this, but it has to be over 20,000, photographers connected to clients to shoot weddings. So,
wow.
Yeah. So a lot of different, as you can imagine, a lot of different experiences over that time. So
I guess that does bring up a point about the individual photographers doing their own marketing versus hiring out to a professional marketer? I know a lot of photographers, they want to kind of be a one-stop shop, do all this stuff, but it definitely, the marketing side, it's really different from the photography side. So it's something that a lot of photographers just aren't familiar with. So like, what are some good tips for the photographers who are wanting to try to do some of their own marketing? And when is it more important that it's better to use a professional like yourself for the marketing instead of trying to do it ourselves?
Sure. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, it really just comes down to how your brain works, right? Like some people are very creative when it comes to their photography work, but maybe don't have that creativity on the business end, right? So maybe that's a time they look to like fill in with a company like ours or hire a marketer directly for their own business. But I do think some basic marketing is something everybody could do and has the ability to do. So I'd like to focus on a couple different concepts. And I think the first one is referrals. That's how everybody gets their start, right? They shoot like their cousin's wedding or, and other people see those pictures and they're like, oh, who shot your wedding? And that's just how weddings work. So I'm going to speak a little bit about weddings. You might hear me say weddings a lot, but the same goes for like family portraits or events. It's all, oh, who shot that? And you have to use that person or they're your friend. And that's all well and good. And it's a great place to get a start. But that does tend to run out. Not for everybody. Mm-hmm. I would say there's a handful of photographers out there that I know, and I'm sure many I don't, that run very successful photography businesses, making, in the six figures because they get those high paying jobs and they get in those circles and they keep getting those referrals. But that's everybody's dream that they aspire to, but it's not reality for most photographers. So you have to find a way to keep that business flowing besides that small group of referrals that keeps rolling in. So those are great, but while that's happening, it's important to be marketing your business in a somewhat traditional fashion, using modern technology, of course. So I think that's important, and we'll talk a little bit about websites. Clearly, you need to have a website, and I think that's a good point to talk about next. Is like having a brochure website versus a website that gets you leads and ultimately clients. For a lot of photographers, it's very easy to make what I would call a brochure website. You have your best pictures up there. It's all about the visual, but there's nowhere to capture leads, nowhere for people to raise their hand and say, hey, I'd like to hire you, or in a way that's obvious to them. So I think that's a first very important thing to look at for your business.
So how would you say then to these photographers who have brochure websites? Because I can say from personal experience, I have had and to some extent continue to have this kind of website. What are the steps that a photographer can take to shift their portfolio from look at my beautiful pictures to look at my beautiful pictures and hire me?
Sure. Yeah. So it's what we call in the marketing world. I'll have to make sure I explain these things instead of just saying them. We call it a call to action, right? There has to be some sort of, I was about to say CTA is what we would call it.
No, that doesn't mean anything to anyone.
Yeah, nothing, zero. Even call to action. They're like, oh yeah, should I just have the phrase that says hire me? No, a call to action is like, somewhere very obvious, starting on the homepage, where they can either say contact me, like that's like the lowest basic thing you should have is a contact form, and I think every like out of the box website like comes with that. But you want some sort of transaction, right? Too like, hey, fill out this form, and I can tell you if I'm available for your date or your event. Some sort of like give me your information. And when we talk about marketing these days, we call that first person data. That is so important, getting people's name, email, and maybe even phone number to follow up with them, because when we talk about other marketing means using like cookies and tracking and ads and retargeting, a lot of that is going away with especially the new iOS 17 coming up. It's going to be even harder to track people's activity on your website. So we want that first party data, name, email. So just a basic form. If you want to take it to the next level, some sort of pop-up before they leave your website saying like, hey, would you like some more information from us? I understand a lot of photographers, you don't want to seem too salesy. You're an artist and you're showing them your work. So there's that fine line to balance, but there's also bills to pay, right? So we have to, put on our sales hat a little bit when it comes to the website. The website should be doing your initial sales for you, where you're going to follow up with people.
I think the thing that I run into, and I'm sure you can speak to this, my biggest concern is coming off as disingenuous when writing copy about why you should hire me. I think that, like you said, photographers kind of focus in on their creative aspect of it a lot of the time. And it does seem like, I'll say, I don't want to talk like negatively about this because it's obviously a positive thing that works for people. But sometimes you see people who are incredible photographers and they've never sold anything in their life. They've never had anyone hire them. They've never sold a print. They haven't done anything, and they're not getting recognized for the incredible work that they're doing, despite trying by putting out a brochure website, which is my new favorite phrase. But then you see people who maybe focus more on the marketing side, and maybe the skills are at a different level than what others might have achieved. I'm trying to be very diplomatic here. But how can you speak to those photographers who are afraid of coming off as disingenuous or coming off as someone who only cares about the sales and doesn't care about the product that they're selling?
Well, I think if you're disingenuous or coming off that way, or you're just focused on the selling and less of the product, you're not going to make it very long. I'd hate to be that person with all that skill that the world never gets to see because you're afraid to sell yourself too. So like I said, it's a fine line to walk. But again, there's bills to pay. So on that side, you need to sell yourself a little bit. On the other side, if you're overselling, people will read right through that, and you're not going to make sales. But that person, even if their work isn't quite as good, they're going to need that practice, right? And they're going to need to get clients, and the only way to do it is to shoot more events. So having that sales side, and you're going to attract a different type of client too. Maybe we should stop and talk about that. If you're focused on the budget and the price, you're going to get that kind of client. If you're focused on your experience or the experience they're going to have with you, so maybe it's not like, oh, I'm the best photographer on the planet, but more, sometimes, the best marketing is to take testimonials from previous clients and just let that do the talking, on your website. Of course, that's a problem when you don't have previous clients, but you should always be asking for reviews from every single type of event you shoot. And then you're able to use that, somewhere on your website, whether it's a separate page or like a scrolling banner on your homepage along with pictures of the couple. So I just think it's a matter of what works for you and in terms of how much you're trying to sell, but I think there has to be some way to do it, some way to, you don't need to necessarily have a sale where you're offering a discount or like really being pushy about it. But I would say, definitely have a way for them to raise their hands. There's nothing more frustrating as a consumer than getting over to somebody's website and saying, I'd like to hire this person, but what am I going to do? There's a phone number. I'm not going to call them. Do either one of you call people?
I haven't called anyone in years.
Yeah. So there has to be a way, text me, email me, please give me your information one way or another. So
I guess that also brings up the point about SEO and getting people to the website to begin with. Great. I know when I was building out my website, all the tutorial stuff is talking about SEO this and SEO that. And of course, I'm reading through there and I was like, I've got no clue what this is. And so can you do a little bit of explaining on that, talking about maybe what works, what draws people to a website?
Yes, I love this. And keep in mind, like everything else we'll talk about after this, social media is all about getting people to your website. And the most unfortunate thing is when you get them there and you have no way to capture them as a client, right? So that's why I want to start with that what sounds very basic. But Yeah, SEO, very important. So search engine optimization. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and it's always changing. The Google algorithm is always changing, and it's moved to a point that's less about like meta tags on your website and keywords. You can look those up. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because that's the old way. It's more about the actual content on your website. So the words you're using in the text on the website, keywords, long tail keywords, and how much time people are spending on your site, how they're engaging, are they scrolling, how far down the page are they scrolling. So when you're designing, especially your homepage, you got to take all that into mind. You want them to spend a lot of time. You want them to be able to move down through your website. Google records all this and rates your website and then ranks you on a search depending on all these factors. Another big one is backlinks right now. You need to have backlinks. So that means links to your website out there somewhere else on the internet. So that means sign up for every listing free listing that you can think of, right? So like anything, like if you shoot like family portraits, maybe it's like Thumbtack or weddings, not Wedding Wire, just anything, local websites that point back, just go through and find them all. Every backlink you can have is going to help you out. That means all your social media. And then also what is important too is what I would call research. So like when someone is thinking of using you, they're Googling you, right? We all do it. So they don't know much about you, especially in photography. If it's not a referral or it is a referral even, they want to know more about you. So what do? They Google your business. So they just saw your webpage. Hopefully that's showing up, somewhere on page 1 because it's you, it's your name, it's unique. But then you want your social media to rank high, right? So they're number 2, number 3. And that's why you want those backlinks so they show up. But when they do that, make sure you have good reviews on Google. Make sure you have good reviews on like Facebook if you allow that, or anywhere. I'd stay far away from Yelp, but if you have one and you've somehow gotten yourself a good review on there that stuck, that they didn't take down, you want that. But any sort of review sites, you want all that to rank high so your competitors are not ranking on page 1 when they search for your business. So you want to dominate that page 1 with your business. Now, one more thing about SEO is it takes time. This is not something that's going to get you clients overnight. We're talking like 6 to 12 month process of Google learning who you are, indexing your website, and tracking activity on your website. So when you set out to do this, just know it's not going to just happen overnight.
So when you talk about backlinks, you mentioned, these listing sites like Thumbtack and so on. What about like backlinking on other like social media platforms or other people's websites and things? Is that equally useful?
Yeah, well, those are sometimes even better. So yeah, other people's websites are great. Anytime someone asks you to use your work, you should not like, if it's like another website, like a venue or a restaurant, or especially if you're starting out, like just let them use your work and just say there needs to be a link to my website and some credit. Like that's how you're going to build up your name, is making sure those links are there. They're worth money, the link themselves. So yes, absolutely. That's a very good point. You should have every social media, even if you don't plan to post to some of it, you should have one, because that's going to give you that backlink. And maybe you put a couple posts there and make sure that it's directing them in the right place and telling them who you are. But yeah, absolutely. Like anytime you collaborate with another business, you can share your pictures and say, hey, if you'd like to use this on your social media and on your website, website's more valuable, but both are good. Just make sure you link back to my website. So not just credit, not linking to your Instagram. That's a big mistake a lot of photographers make. You want the link to your website, so that's a very good point.
So if we're going to go back to social media, if it's okay, I'd like to transition to that, because I think a lot of photographers focus on social media very heavily. And there does seem to be a bit of a pushback on Instagram in the photography community now. So my question for you is, where do you put your energy when it comes to social media? What is worth the time and the effort?
And maybe I'll get some blowback from this, but so the average American as of 2022 spends 2 hours and 36 minutes on a Meta platform, Facebook or Instagram, a day. So that is a lot. It's disgusting, but it's a reality.
Yeah.
And I know everybody likes to look for the new up and coming, social media platform, but and pretend like they're not on Instagram anymore. But that is still where the data shows people are. So I would say that that's the best place to start still for visual and media. In term, Pinterest is still relevant, but you're talking about, it's like 1/50th of Instagram, right? So you should be kind of where, I'm a big believer of be where people are. And so, again, it's just a matter of, are you trying to reach clients? Are you trying to you should always be looking for the next big thing. And be there before other people. That is important, right? So like if you were early on Snapchat, or any whatever, even early on Flickr, right, or early on anything where people are going to be exposed to your work, where it's just like SEO, right? If you're there first and you have the most views and most followers, you're gonna get more traction. But you should still make sure you are where people are, no matter what your personal relationship is with that social media platform.
Is there any credence to the idea that you should be, let's go with Instagram or Meta? Is there any credence in the, you must be posting consistently, everything must look the same, the layout must be aesthetically pleasing? Is that important, or is it more the text behind it, or just the fact that you have it?
Okay, so yeah, exactly. Well, A, you need to have it. B, it should look aesthetically pleasing, but that's not what's going to help you in the algorithm. So let's talk about that for a minute. This is something I think about a lot, is that relevant posting and timely posting is important. If you're posting once every 6 months, I know that's extreme, you're not going to get seen, right? Posting every day is fine, but maybe 2 times a week is probably, where you would need to be to stay relevant in people's feeds. Stories become more important. They're getting more engagement now. But okay, so this goes back to where my referrals run out. You can have a lot of organic followers, and they may not all be your customer. So that's something to keep in mind, but it's important to have their engagement in order to put you into that algorithm more often as something that Meta sees as relevant, right? To show to new people. So the keywords are going to be very important. So like the wording, just like in SEO that you're using in your posts, hashtags are a little less important than they used to be, but it certainly doesn't mean you shouldn't use them at all. If you're shooting at a venue, you should tag them and include the location. You should tag as many people that you've collaborated with. If you've shot at a restaurant, if you shoot wherever you are, you should tag them, because that's A, giving more information to the algorithm, and B, getting you more, you'll get more organic shares from those people you're tagging. But like referrals, organic's only going to take you so far. They want you to spend money on these platforms. So it's important, even if it's just $1 a day to start, that you're using some sort of ad on any of the, pick one platform that you feel you have the most traction on, you've gotten engagement on, that you've gotten clients from before. I still think it's Instagram. When you're talking about family shoots, wedding shoots, maybe if you're looking to do more commercial, you're on LinkedIn. But I would stay focused on a more visual platform. And so ads are something you can figure out on your own. You can hire an agency to do. But I would say, even if you just played around with $1 to $5 a day just to get some more engagement on your ads, that's going to tell the algorithm more information. It's just a fact. They want your money. So the people that spend a little bit, they're going to get more play on social media. So I recommend trying that. And if you're like, well, I don't have that kind of money, it's kind of like, this is your business. You have to spend money to make money. It's like a cup of coffee a day. So have 2 coffees instead of 3 or something. I don't know. But that I would recommend, a little bit of paid advertisement.
I think one thing that I know that I'm maybe have a problem with, and then I think it is something that a lot of people do, is that photographers end up marketing to other photographers a lot, as opposed to the client base. There's a lot of photographers who have very successful YouTube channels or successful Instagrams and so forth, and they're well known in the photography community, but not outside of that. Is there a way that we can kind of shift our mindset and think about the client as opposed to each other?
Wow, interesting. I think it is important to be in front of each other, right, for encouragement, ideas, and referrals, right? Someone might say, "I'm booked this date, but you know who's awesome? Let me connect you with Chelsea." So I think this is where social media comes in, right? And take yourself out of that comfort zone of being in these like circles of just photographers and having that mindset of trying to impress photographers, because they're not your customer ultimately, right? Like it is whether it's weddings, you're looking for brides and grooms. Family shoots are usually brides and grooms that you're shooting down the road, right? Or referrals from others, or events. So I would say start to learn more about your clients. What do they look like? Look at your past clients. Always ask for referrals. But this is really, again, where the ads come in. This is where, if we're talking marketing, put your marketing hat on and think, okay, I'm going to run ads. The beauty of somewhere like Meta, or, to lesser degrees like Snapchat, TikTok has some pretty good, they have good demographics that you could target to. So, if it's a wedding, it's someone who's engaged to be married. They know your relationship status, right? Like, so you could start looking at into these advertisement platforms. And what's neat about that is then you could start to create what are called lookalike audiences on all these platforms. And it's like, well, I have all these people that like my page. I want to create a lookalike of all these followers I have, but I want to exclude photographers. I don't want to show my ads to photographers. And you can do those sort of things. So this is where, you have to step outside of your comfort zone, which is like, interacting with other photographers and using photographer speak and thinking more of a marketer and a salesperson. And I think for me, it was always like, as a salesperson, it's more of like, putting on a performance. It may not be you. It's not who you're used to being, but you need to be genuine and be able to talk about what it is you generally love about what you do. And so think about that when you're setting up your social media profile or your website. You're talking to those people. And so it should be dumbed down as if you were having a conversation with them. I think emails you send out, marketing emails, or any copy you're writing, just think about writing to a friend, right, who's also potentially a client, and why you want to be a part of their big day and your experiences in the past and how you're going to capture it, or why you want to shoot their corporate event and how you've done them in the past and why you enjoy them, and think about your features and benefits. What do you bring to the table? And it doesn't have to be something that's unique. It's just what you bring to the table, right? So whether that's your editing style or your ability to turn around the pictures quickly, or or just feedback from the past, or that you have a very outgoing personality, or you're comfortable with children, or any of these things, right? Just think about all those things and make a big long list on a piece of paper. And when you go to marketing, writing copy, you can use these, right? Like bullet points, essentially for what are your superpowers, I like to say, right?
I like that.
And I do kind of want to bring up a little bit about, you mentioned kind of the consistency of posting like every couple of days or potentially even daily, something like that. But as someone who has seen, because you work in the marketing, you've seen, I'm assuming, tons of different photographers posting their work. Which would you say is more successful? The people who post incredibly consistently, or the people whose work may be of better quality, but just a little less consistently posted. Is it that big of a player, and can consistency make up for maybe not necessarily being the best of the photographers at the time? Is that something that's going to help people be able to grow and reach out more than just being a good photographer?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Yeah, if you're still, working on your craft, posting consistently is going to keep you in that algorithm of showing up in people's feeds, right? But if you post too often and it's irrelevant, and I'm thinking of a few in my mind as you say that, where it's just like they post like 100 pictures individually from the same wedding over the course of a week at like 5-6 a day, and I'm like, I don't need to see this anymore, right? Like this is just so like that is like a no, right? Unless they have their following and their following just loves them. But you should select like your best work. And maybe if in your mind, it's not the best compared to other people, but select your best and think of like engaging shots, right? Like think about, a flower girl. I'm going to talk about weddings for a minute, just because it's easier for me to talk about. Like, think about like some unique thing that happened that day, a first look or something funny or something people could like comment on, right? And then you're a visual person. You're using pictures to sell your business. That's what you're selling, but you're also selling a personality. So think about what you write. Like ask questions in your posts. And you want that. That's the other thing, right? You need engagement. So that's not just likes. A heart is more important than a like, and a comment is more important than anything. Anytime anybody comments on anything, whether they write you a review somewhere or they make a comment, you need to answer. That engagement is going to push you up in the algorithm, whether it's SEO or on social media. And it shows people you're a real live person who is going to get back to them right away. That's the most important, right? With any purchase you make anywhere is like not having buyer's remorse. And that helps lead to the better experience. You might get referrals before you even shoot their event, right? Because, oh, this person's awesome. Like they call me anytime I have a question, they answer that. So you can show that ability on your social media by replying to people. But think about engagement, right? So if you're like, if you shoot family portraits, maybe you, and you do it very locally in your area, you say, say I live in Boston, just ask your following, where are your favorite places in Boston to take pictures, or where are your favorite places, period. And just not because you really care about the answer to that question, but because you want that engagement on your page, right? So like, that's sort of a silly example, but think about interacting. And that is what it's all about. Like with all marketing is like starting a conversation, and, using social media, using your website to start a conversation. Because from there, you make friendships that turn into clients. So that's a long answer to your, yes, you need to post often, but it needs to be relevant and good and engaging, which I know is sort of a loaded answer, but that is super important. Don't just like spray and pray, right? Like we went shooting. Don't do that on social media.
But it is a really good answer, because I've seen it as a photographer that other people, they just sit there and make all these posts. And I've seen them making these marketing posts in like dedicated photographer groups. And it's like, I get the consistency and excessive uploads, but is it really like, how does it all interact? It's definitely good information.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I would just say, if you think about it from the terms of engagement, and if you're posting and nobody's reacting, then you're posting the wrong stuff, right? If you're not getting any feedback at all. And believe me, on a lot of social media, especially when you're getting started, if you're not using paid advertisement, you're not going to just get a lot of organic interaction, except from like your family and friends. Like, or, you have to invite people to engage with you.
I guess then the big question is, how do you go from, I have this great rapport with the people who follow me on social media, and people are finding me genuine, they're finding me interesting, they're answering my questions, there's engagement there. How do you go from that to money in your pocket?
So from there, once you have that engagement, so think about it as like building blocks, right? You're making these posts. Now you're getting engagement. Now you have to get them over to your website, which is hopefully where you're collecting this name and email and people are raising their hands. It could even happen, on a direct message too, right? Like send me. So it might be I'm just thinking about a very general one. Like people say, I'm having mini sessions this Saturday. Now that you have that engagement, people are seeing like hey, I'm having mini sessions a month from now on a Saturday. Who would like to go? I only have, think about like time sensitive stuff. I have 5 slots. Who wants them? Like if that's the kind of stuff you're doing, nobody's going to see it if you don't have that engagement. So, so once you have that engagement, then you take the next step. Like, hey, I'm already booking up. You need to put like deadlines on people, right? Human beings, we're sort of generally lazy, right? So you need to put some sort of, when you think about marketing, it sounds a little salesy, but it's just true. You got to give people like a reason to say like, now's the time to book you, right? So it might be, I just opened up my calendar for October of next year. I have 2 dates left, so if anybody's interested, let me know. If you have a good working website, your only goal on social media should be to get them to that website, because there's a lot you can do. And I think we've already kind of covered, like, get them to your website, give them a reason to raise their hand and give you their information so you can, and we didn't really talk about the follow-up, but the whole idea is that then you follow up with them right away in a very helpful way, to turn them into your client. So besides getting them to your website, this is where ads come in again, right? Because now you can specifically target people with ads that have engaged with your page. That is an audience you can build. Or if you're running Google ads, same thing. People that have visited your website or on social media, you could say, I want to show this ad to just people on my website. And that's where your hard call to action, right? So your social media, your organic is more about engagement, showing off your work, and your ads are the call to action. Looking to book your wedding. I'm offering whatever, $100 off, or I have dates, whether you use time pressure or a sale or something, that's where you get them to fill out the form to say like, hey, I'm interested, send me more information. So marketing and sales is a lot like dating, right? Like you don't just walk up to someone, shake their hand and say, hey, you want to get married, right? In marketing, we call it a sales funnel, right? But you could think of it like courting, right? Like there's a meeting, then you get to know them a little better before you propose to them, right? Like, hey, I'd like to be your photographer. So think about that middle ground. What is it that you're offering to take it to that next level? I'm a big believer in get them to the website, give them a reason to give you their information. And this is probably not something we have time to get into, but from there, email marketing is sort of king right now, right? And that's sending out periodic newsletters, letting people know what you're up to, what you're doing, and then a call to action. If you'd like to learn more about booking me for your wedding, click here, have them fill out, or even better, hey, if you're interested in more information about, you don't say, hey, would you like me to be your wedding photographer? You want to ease them into it and say, like, if you'd like more information, reply back to this email and just start that conversation, right? And now you can talk about when's your date. Oh, great, I have your date available. What sort of package are you looking for? And if it suits what you do, maybe you even, whether you have a PDF you can send them with packaging and pricing, or you just have it on your website. I know for some people it doesn't work. You like to change your pricing based on the date and location, whatever. But you have to have a way for them to purchase and to know what they're going to purchase from you too. So there's a lot of steps to that, but I would say think about it in terms of a relationship and moving them through a sales funnel.
So one thing, we don't know what we don't know. So while we get towards the end of the time that you have for us, busy man, is there anything that we didn't ask or touch on that you think would be beneficial for anyone listening to know?
Oh, wow. Great question. I think it's about, I think we covered it, like relationship building through your marketing, presenting yourself, talking to people like they're people. That is really the best way to market a small business, is talking to people, not just about yourself, but recognizing what it is they need and how you're going to solve that problem for them, and being open to that. So really from there, it's about giving them the opportunity. I think my biggest pet peeve with photographers and they can't get themselves sales and they don't, and then they give up. It's like you have you have this great talent, you have this great ability. You just need to be able to let people know that. So you got to sometimes take your photographer hat off and put on a marketing and sales hat. And if you can't do that, ask for help, right? You might have a friend that is non-competing that could help you. It's always good to ask for help, or go to a marketing conference, virtually, or take some free online classes, or just pay attention into the marketing world. If this is something you really want to make a go at, if you want to make your business relevant. And I would say the referrals are great, but someday those are going to run out, or it's not going to be enough to make a full-time living out of it if that's what you want to do. So you have to always be marketing no matter what. Once you stop, that's when the clients stop coming. So
that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for all that information. I know from personal experience that a lot of these things are things that I would not have necessarily thought to do. And I'm sure there are other photographers that see a lot of value in this. I just want to finish up that thought with if you guys have any other questions about this, please put them in the comments here. Keith will be keeping an eye on the comments on YouTube and in the Discord. He's in the Discord. So if you have any follow-up questions, he is available to be there sometimes to answer. So I want to say thank you to Keith for giving us his time today. And giving us this really insightful information.
Yeah, this has been just an absolutely incredible opportunity to learn. And just some of these questions that I've had and that I've seen come up, just being able to actually have that information handed out, and it's going to help a lot. And it really is some just fantastic information. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
So again, I want to thank Keith for his time. It was incredible information, and it's such a large topic that we really can't fit that in half hour, 15 minutes. But there's so much there to explore, and I think he gave us some really good launching off points that we can delve more into. Like, it didn't occur to me to think about the website as the ultimate goal, because sometimes I know I've gotten requests through social media and so forth, but it makes so much more sense to be like, let's filter people and let's get their information. Let's do a newsletter. I'm sitting on like a list of people that have signed up for my newsletter, and I haven't sent a newsletter out in like 3 years. So there's some value in that I completely have disregarded.
Yeah, and some of that information just on like even using social media and doing the posts there, it's something I just never really had thought of. I've used social media and I've made the posts here and there and haven't necessarily seen tons of engagement. And it's good to hear. It's like, oh, well, that's what I'm doing wrong right there. I can actually improve on that.
Yep. There's a lot. I took notes. And I'm going to listen back on it.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely going to be marking out spots in the recording.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, we are also, trying to talk directly to photographers. So we have to kind of think about that.
It's hard sometimes. Well. It's like, okay, am I talking to the photographers here, or am I trying to get clients for this part? And even with the regular posting, sometimes it gets mixed up.
Yeah, ¿por qué no los dos, right? But yes, I understand. So I think one thing that we can kind of talk about before we finish episode 3 today is the prompts, because we're in the latter half of the month now. I've seen some filter in, but not as many as maybe in past months. And I do think that has a lot to do with the fact that we're asking for a series.
Yeah, so hopefully there's a lot more people out there like me who are waiting till we can post them as a full set. Because that is something I think with the whole mise en scene, and I'm butchering that pronunciation, but...
You're not French, it's fine.
But for me, with something like this, where you are taking a set of photos that you're wanting at least some consistency with style or theme, or even just an element within the photo, to be able to have it displayed as a set can make a bigger impact than just the individual photos.
Yeah, and that was kind of the whole idea behind this month which we talked about a little bit in episode 1. But that was kind of the whole idea, is that having a short photo story gives you a lot more latitude than a solo image can.
On the other hand, it's definitely taking a lot more planning than a solo image. Part of it is, if you're using another person, being able to have consistency to work with that person over the period of a month instead of just for one shoot.
Yeah.
Or keeping up with different props and working that into multiple different scenes over the course of a month. It can definitely be a little more challenging. I really do think the end result is going to be a huge payoff, though. One thing I actually want to see, maybe make this a little extra challenge for anyone who just feels like going above and beyond and being a little extra, but print out the photos. I think I'm going to do this for this month's theme. I'm going to print out the photos and display them. I probably won't have the prints done by the time the month is up.
Great idea.
But I think that would be fun to see if other people are going out there and printing them and displaying them together and seeing how they're displayed and how that fits with the theme that they shot.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm a huge proponent of printing your photos. When there's something about holding them physically that allows you to see things that you don't necessarily see on a digital screen. So huge proponent of that. I think that's a great idea. And obviously no time frame on that because that's for you. So I think that's a great idea. Is there any, so you, as a person who is going through the challenge, who doesn't have any like extra insight than anyone else, is there anything that's particularly challenging for you so far this month that maybe I can clarify or help with?
I don't think there's anything about the prompts themselves that are giving challenge. It really is about, for me, just being able to plan out a set of photos, because I've had a handful of ideas and a couple of them I've had to discard or put on a shelf at least, just because of timing. It's the people I was wanting to work with. It's not available. Right. Some of the settings I've thought about using, it's like, well, I won't be able to get in there until another month or two, or the amount of work I would have to put into it, I wouldn't be able to get done effectively within a month. I've got a handful of different kind of props and settings that are all going to tie in and essentially tell a story. I really love the kind of making it a story. And so I'm wanting to also do the overall theme set similar to like movie stills, like cropped with the letterboxing format and color graded and all that.
Nice. 16:9.
I know. As much as I like shooting in black and white, I think for these I'm going to go color just so I can have that as an extra layer of consistency on all of it.
Great. You know how I feel about color, so I'm on board with that. Yeah. It's always a time thing. I mean, I think a lot of the reason that we see people really enthusiastic in the beginning of the year and then kind of peter out as the year goes by is time. It's time, because then what ends up happening is that you don't have time to do one, and then you're like, well, I missed that one, so I'm all done. To that, I will say, no, come back. We're here. We're waiting for you. There's no qualms about missing out on a few because of life. I 100% understand. So yeah, the timing thing is a big problem, especially like you said, when you're trying to plan a larger whole set. So I can understand that. To that, I will say, if anybody is working on this actively, whether it's just brainstorming or actually shooting and what have you, and you found that you aren't going to make the deadline of August 31st, then don't worry. It's fine. Just do it when you can do it. Get it in when you get in. This whole thing is about you and your progress. It's not about
no one's being graded here. I know I've turned in a couple of the things.
No one's
a
being
little
graded. Yep, everyone has. I've skipped a lot.
Yeah. And I do think it's also important that we do take on some of these challenges that are going to be making time a bigger factor. Because, I mean, as a photographer in general, time and working out and scheduling conflicts can be a regular part of kind of the frustration that you have to deal with sometimes. Whether you're out there shooting families or weddings or whatever, or even if you're just doing it on your own for fun, finding the time to get out there and doing it. So by having that as kind of a part of the challenge, where building it within a time and trying to actually make that work on a little bit larger of a scale than for just a single photo, I think that can actually still be really helpful.
Yeah.
Frustrating sometimes, but helpful.
I think I try to make the prompts as frustrating as possible, if we're going to be honest. No, I think that's all fair. I think that's a good takeaway. I don't want anyone to feel discouraged about any of it. It's all just for our own sake. It's for our individual sake, not anyone else's. So we talked a lot about marketing today. We talked a lot about the business side of things, which is something that I despise personally. So, but I've learned a lot today, and it's all very valuable. So my call to action today is to have you guys ask those questions in the comments, join the Discord, talk to us in Discord, like and subscribe. And if we're going to go back to episode 1, let's see. This episode is brought to you by Birra Moretti. That's the beer I'm drinking today. Again, they didn't pay me, but here it is, getting me through the day.
One of these days, they'll start sponsoring. You just got to keep rotating through.
Yeah, one of these days, one of these random Eastern European beers will give me some money.
Or at least a free
not
case.
Today. Today is not that day. Or at least a free case. I'll take a free case. It's like free anyway. It's cheaper than water. So yes, that is where we are today. So that's my call to action to all of you, is just get involved with us and ask us those questions. Get involved with each other on the Discord. And we'll see you guys all next week.